Leo, yes, followed by Khalil. Sarah Leon.
Thank you very much. And let me start by thanking both panelists and the presentations that we just heard, and divide my comments really into first general evaluation concerns, and second to address the specifics of the protected areas evaluation. I think my first comments are also inspired by what Joss just mentioned, and they have to do with how can the evaluation recommendations be even stronger and more helpful. I think some takeaways for me are, first of all, how important it is to make the recommendations as actionable as possible. And for example, recommendation 4 of the protected areas evaluation does that. It's very clear as to the things that had to occur to have better data and better information. But some of the others, I think we, the Council, need more help from you in terms of how to make that more actionable and more precise. So that would be, I think, quite helpful. The second point, I want to agree with Joss here. The recommendations should be forward-looking. They're about evaluation and learning, is about how can we do things better in the future. So I would, to put it provocatively, I would say that a test for a recommendation in an evaluation should be, if the Secretariat can very credibly say, we're already doing that, it's probably a bad recommendation. We want a recommendation that the Secretariat will say, well, we're not doing that, but it's a bad idea, or it's a good idea, or we need to talk about it. That's a good recommendation, because then it gives us the space here in the Council to then talk about what needs to happen in order to grow, to evolve, and to improve. A third point here is the importance of having a tracking of the degree to which we are actually implementing the recommendations that are made by the IEO and approved, modified, or approved ultimately by the Council. I know across the street at the IMF Independent Evaluation Office, where I used to work, we had a matrix that very systematically aggregated all of the approved recommendations and then simply tracked where are they in terms of implementation and where are things falling behind, where are things on schedule. I think that would be helpful for the Council simply to have a place to have all that information in one place. And finally, fourthly, on the general points, the importance of outreach, I think, has to be stressed, especially after all the resources and the effort that went into an evaluation like the one on protected areas. It's very important that it's not just us here that hears it and knows the results, but that you're able to do as much outreach as your time and resources can allow, and being very strategic about where to present so that we can have maximum exposure to the results of this. Specifically in the protected areas evaluation, first of all, we really appreciated your efforts to try to get at the counterfactual, because ultimately an evaluation is all about what would have happened if the GEF had not been there. And I think, especially in the case study in Mexico, you really went the extra mile to try to find out as best as possible what the counterfactual would have been. Secondly, we strongly, along with Mexico, strongly support your recommendation number 4 on the baseline data and the tracking. Without baseline data, we have lost half the battle. We have to do better in terms of having that the systems in place to collect it, and we very much look forward to implementing, hopefully, the recommendation on data and information. Also, and agree with some of my colleagues on the importance of the sustainable financing piece that is raised here as a concern. How specifically should we try to address that? Obviously, it's an area of relevance to this Council because we're, if nothing else, all about the financing. How do we improve in terms of sustainable financing? What are some of the actionable points here to try to move this forward? I think another point that's important is about the fact that ultimately protected areas have to rely upon political support in the country, not just the institutions and the technical aspects for the protected areas, but they have to enjoy support at the highest levels of the federal and the state and local governments. And this is an area perhaps where the sharing the evaluation results could help build up that political support. I think if political leaders are inspired by some of the very positive results that came out of this evaluation, it might help to promote and secure more political support for protected areas in the future. So here again, the outreach is very important to help build that political capital. An interesting conclusion, I think, was about the mangroves and how, in that particular case, in Mexico at least, the GEF-supported protected areas did less well than the non-GEF protected areas. And so, I don't know if you already mentioned this elsewhere in the document, but would be one question that arises is, what should we do about that? Does that mean that GEF should avoid mangrove areas where there's a lot of tourism pressure, or are there other ways to try to address the pressures that have led to underperformance there? Let me stop here. I think those are the most important points, but again, I want to congratulate you on the very innovative efforts that you took here, both in terms of the data sources and the method, to try to get us to, I think, a very inspiring set of results. Thank you.